Hey everybody, what's going on? It's your boy Nerd Boy Q, and sorry it's been so long, but I had a lot of freelance work to do, and I had to catch up on it. At any rate, where we left off, we did the while loop, we did the for loop, we did some variables, and you can see the while loop is still here, right? What we did was we created a counter, and we just did, hey, count from 0 to 10, which is a 10 value counter, but it stops at 10. So you say 0 to 9, right? Cool. So this is the output that we had previously. And we did a little math. We say, give me the even numbers, give me the odd numbers. Now what I want to introduce you to is functions. So functions, before, what we did was we used a function like print. We call this function. And we'll go into a little detail today about what's the difference, like what do you mean by calling. So just to go back, you say build. One quick note, before, what we were doing is we were running this in Sublime, and I know some people have issues running their code in Sublime, and usually in a real world scenario you wouldn't run it in Sublime. You would run it through command prompt or some clicking or whatever the case is. So if you're having issues running in Sublime, what you can do is, for Windows, obviously I use terminal, but I'm sorry, for Mac I use terminal, but for Windows you use command prompt. So what you want to do is you want to go to wherever this file is located. So this file is located in a specific folder. So I open terminal or command prompt for Windows. And what I want to do is I want to CD or change directory into that folder. I know my folder's name is tutorial Python. And then here I have my file. Now notice I typed in ls for list files and directories. In Windows you would type in dir for listing files and directories. So I see that my file python101.py is here, like this, same exact file. And if I want to run it, I simply say python and then the name of the file, and then it runs it. Now let's get into functions. Now, so what we'll do is we'll say define. So this is the syntax for defining the function. And you say my function. Let's just do that. My underscore function, parentheses close, and a colon. And this is how you do the same thing with a loop, same thing with if, same thing. Anytime it's containing something, you have to put a colon, and then same effect. You want to indent, because Python is an indent-based programming language. So now you have that. So now you got your function. So let's say I want to run that again. Here's the thing, nothing happens. Or so it looks like nothing is happening. So what's going on is that function is defined, but it's not being called. Notice again, here we see print is being called. So what does that mean by being called? Meaning you simply have to take the name of it and place it outside. Now, in Python, the function has to be defined before you call it. Simple as that. You don't know what X is until I tell you what X is, right? Same thing. So all we do is just put it here. Let's put a little space between it, and we say my function. Now when we run it, and make sure you save, Control S, and now it runs again. So now you have your function. Boom. You just made your first function. You made your personal function, my first function. So now let's do something a little fun. We're going to pass a value in. So right now we're counting from 0 to 10, right? Let's say I want to keep my counter. I like my counter logic, but I want to be able to just count 10 up from whatever value I pass in. So instead of that, I say, let's do this. Let's get rid of that, right? And we're going to say, now we're defining our function with the expectation that a value will be passed in. So notice here, if we don't pass a value in, it'll not work, right? So we need to have a value. See, now we get an error. It says my function missing one required positional argument C, because we defined it as C here. So now all we have to do is we got to say, okay, well, I want to make my counter, and I want to say 0. Before we were passing in the 0. So we're counting from 0. So let's do the same thing. Run. Now we get it. Here's the thing. Now my counter's working. That's nice. I say pass in 3 for whatever reason. Run that. Cool. Now it counts from 3 to 10, right? But I want to do like a counter from that value plus 10. So what I can do is I can say, okay, well, I'll say we'll call it we'll call it max value equals C plus 10. And we just count from max value. So now it'll always increase by 10. And let's do this. Let's leave it at that. Matter of fact, let's do this plus 11 just to make it the numbers look a little better. Let's do that. So now this should count from 3 to 13. Boom. Now whatever number you pass in, say let's do 5, 15. Same thing, 5 to 15. So now you'll see that you're passing a value in. So what happens if you pass in the wrong value? You'll get a bunch of errors. Before we were passing an integer type, and now we're not. Error message. All right, because it's expecting an integer value. All the function, all the logic that we put in is expecting a number value. So now you get a bunch of errors. So you have to make sure you're passing in the right variable type. So this is a function. This is how you create it. One thing is, so now you can, one thing is you want to be specific about your variable names. Let's say, let's call this, we're going to change C. And we're going to say, we're going to change C to val. Let's do this. We're going to change this to val. Val. We're just giving it a specific name, right? Let's say val. I'm not asking for Siri. I don't know why it's doing that. Val. Val and val. Okay, cool. So now we've changed all of it, right? Same thing, we run it, same result. The reason I changed it because we want to give it a specific name. All right, you want it to be very specific. A lot of times we run into this issue where we'll say, this is what a lot of people do, and this is very dangerous. You say val equals 5, right? Which is technically the same thing. It's going to run the exact same way as it did before. The thing is, this is a global variable, and here is a local variable. Show you something. So let's say we'll do this. Print my global. And we'll say wow. Now, notice in here it's being incremented. So here at the end of it is 15, but for some reason, when we run it, it still says 5. That's because we made the variable the same name, but right here it's a global variable, and right here it's only referencing the global definition value of this variable, not the local. So right here, this is only local. So what we're doing is, let's say we'll call this, always make sure you name it something very specific. We'll call that global val. All right. Now, just to give a little bit more definition, this accepted variable, this just has to be the name that you use within it. So you're defining a name here technically. Well, literally, you're defining a name here, and this is what you'll use. But here is a global value. So here is the global value and the local value. The local variable is here. Now, if you want to change it, what's nice is you can do this. You can say return val. And what that's doing is making this function call a value. It's going to return a value. So then now you say global value equals, let's do this. Let's do final value. Let's do that just to make it clear. Final value equals this. And then you say final value. So now once it's changed, that value should equal whatever it was last, which is 15. And oh, we incremented again afterwards, so it's 16. So there you have it. Now you're returning a value, and now you're changing it. Another thing you can do is this. if you want to actually update the global value and use this function to do an incrementer and say, hey, let's say we want to do this, and just because we wanted to, minus equals is the opposite of plus equals, right? Same thing. So we want to return that last value we got. So now we say, okay, we do this while loop, we do an increment. Let's say I always, whatever number I pass in, I want to return the final value of the incrementer. So we want to increase it by 10 or whatever the function may be. We can actually say, okay, run this, make sure we save, run it. Now my global variable has been updated to 15. So that's what you use functions for. You use functions to easily manipulate things and just return a simple value. You can return values, you can do quick checks, you can do all kind of different math, all kind of different shifters, signs, whatever you may want, text editors and all that stuff, but that's the goal of a function. So thank you for taking out the time to watch my video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me questions. I guarantee it, I will answer within 24 hours. I always have my phone and my laptop on me. But like always, it's your boy Nerdboy Q, and have fun striking again with Python.